trying for a baby for 5 years. My wife is finally pregnant, but because her first love is gravely ill, he wants to abort our child to bear his. Can't you be a little more generous? He is dying. What's wrong with helping him have a child? Later, the female business partner who has stood by me for years stood in the middle of the road, tears in her eyes, confessing her love for me. Yet my wife pleaded with tears. For the sake of a vixen, are you going to abandon our family? I hesitated and said, I can't just watch her seek death. It's just about registering a marriage certificate. Can't you be a bit more generous? What did you say? You want to abort our child? To make room for Li Feng's child, and have one for him? I looked in disbelief at my wife Liu Ruyan, her face full of righteousness, as if I was meeting her for the first time. Li Feng was Liu Ruyan's first love. He left her to study abroad. Only then could I marry Liu Ruyan. I know first loves are hard to forget, so I poured my whole heart into Liu Ruyan, yearning to give her even the stars in the sky. We started trying for a baby in the 2nd year of our marriage, and only now, after 5 long years, did we succeed. During that time, I was almost in despair, ready to give up, planning to adopt a child with Liu Ruyan. But this morning, on my way to the bathroom, I unexpectedly saw a pregnancy test with 2 lines in the trash. At that moment, I jumped up in excitement, holding Liu Ruyan and spinning her around in a big circle. My long-cherished wish was finally coming true, to have a wife who loves me. And now, the dream seemed within reach. Cute child. I feel like I'm the happiest man in the world. But I never thought how excited I was back then. Now it's as cold as ice. I know Li Feng is ill. It seems to be quite serious, but I never expected Liu Ruyan to fulfill his last wish. Actually wants to abort the child we've struggled to conceive. My face turned terribly grim, looking at Liu Ruyan, but she looked completely indifferent. Her tone was filled with casualness. It's just a child, isn't it? If we lose this one, we can always have another. But Brother Li Feng has already received a critical condition notice. He doesn't have much time left. This is his only wish. Can't you understand? It's just a child. How easy it is for you to say that. Isn't this child the crystal of our love? Moreover, even if he dies, what does it have to do with me? I wasn't the one who made him sick, and now, with just a single word from him, he wants me to lose the child we've struggled so hard to have. How is that even possible? The most important thing is, Lin Feng abandoned you before. Why don't you just refuse him outright? Give him a slap on the face? Why do you even come to ask for my opinion? It's utterly ridiculous. I was infuriated by Liu Ruyan. I refused her directly. No, I disagree. To have this child, we have endured so much hardship. How could we possibly give it up because of him? And if he wants a child, why must he ask you to help him? Just because you were his first love? I don't know if Li Feng's brain isn't clear, asking for such a thing due to his illness. What a ridiculous demand. Or is it that Liu Ruyan still can't forget him and can't bear to refuse? But then I thought of something. That pregnancy test stick, I found it while cleaning the trash bin this morning. Doesn't this mean, if I hadn't seen it, Liu Ruyan would never have told me she was pregnant? She would have secretly aborted the child, and then gone on to fulfill Li Feng's last wish? At that thought, cold sweat broke out all over me. I looked at Liu Ryan. She also seemed unsettled, as if I had hit the mark. Her face turned quite ugly. She frowned ... and turned around, heading towards the door. Shen Muyan. Marrying you is so boring. You never understand me. I'm telling you ... I have already decided on this matter. No one can change my mind. Understand you? We have been married for 7 years. We are husband and wife. And now you want to abort our child to make room in your womb for your first love. How do you expect me to understand that? Tell me ... What man could endure such humiliation? The sound of the door being locked from the inside snapped me out of my thoughts. I hurried forward and knocked forcefully on the door. Liu Ryan. Open the door. That's our child. You can't just abort it like that. I don't agree. We are the ones who are married. Liu Ryan. Do you not care about my feelings at all? I beg you ... Open the door. Behind the closed door. I heard her cold, impatient voice again. Shen Muyan. Can't you be a little more magnanimous? Brother Lin Feng is dying. What's wrong with me? Helping him have a child? Because Li Feng is ill ... For the past 6 months, I rarely saw Liu Ryan anymore. I sympathized with him. I also pitied him. But that's no excuse for Li Feng to make such an outrageous request. I gripped the door handle, forcing myself to calm down, with a voice full of pleading ... Ryan. I beg you ... The child in your belly is the one we tried for 5 years to conceive. He hasn't even taken form yet ... And you're already going to abandon him? The rustling outside the door came to a sudden halt. I didn't know if Liu Ryan had a fleeting moment of regret, but soon enough, her resolute footsteps gradually moved away. With the sound of the main door closing, I collapsed to the ground as if my soul had left me. My heart felt like it had been cut by a knife, aching intensely. I couldn't understand why Liu Ryan had become like this. We used to be so deeply in love. We would cuddle like any ordinary couple and watch movies together. After work, we would hold each other's hands tightly and stroll down the streets. Sometimes, when she saw I was too tired ... she would prepare small surprises in daily life for me. I felt so fortunate to have such a gentle, considerate wife, who understood me so well. But all of that ... changed after Li Feng returned home critically ill. Because I trusted Liu Ryan. At first, when she began meeting Li Feng ... I didn't think much of it. But gradually, I sensed something was off. The Liu Ryan who used to consult me on everything ... hardly spoke to me anymore. She would leave early and come back late. And sometimes, she was gone for days on end. Especially on my birthday. Because of a single phone call from Li Feng, Liu Ruyan rushed out into the pouring rain and stayed by his side for 3 days and 3 nights. Amidst my relentless questioning, she cried, saying I didn't trust her. I felt guilty and remorseful. I thought it was my jealousy, my fault. So I treated her even better, complying with her every wish. I wished I could put a chain around my neck and hand it to her. But now, reality has finally opened my eyes. She just could never forget Li Feng. Even after 7 years apart, her feelings for Li Feng have only deepened. Otherwise, why would she agree to such an absurd request? I forced a bitter smile, but my heart grew colder bit by bit. I held her in the palm of my hand for 7 years. But I could never compare to someone who once abandoned her. If they are so eager to rekindle their past, then I might as well grant them their wish. I wanted to find my phone and call Liu Ruyan to tell her that I wanted a divorce, to give Li Feng his place. But my phone was locked outside the door by her. I pounded on the door in anger. But it was useless. I remembered that the bedroom balcony and the living room balcony were adjacent, separated by just a wall. Gritting my teeth, I went to the balcony. Using the air conditioner unit as a stepping stone, I managed to jump into the living room, with some danger but safely. I picked up my phone, about to call Liu Ruyan, when I saw a photo sent to me by Li Feng. In the photo, Liu Ruyan was wearing a hospital gown, lying on a bed, about to be pushed into the operating room. But her face, looking at the camera, was filled with happiness and tenderness. Li Feng also sent me a message. Brother Muyan, I am truly sorry. I tried to persuade Ruyan, but it was useless. She is determined to give birth to my child. I honestly just mentioned it casually, but I can't help it. I feel ashamed, truly ashamed. I gritted my teeth as I looked at my phone. It seemed as if I could feel Li Feng's smug and arrogant expression through the screen. Previously, I had accompanied Liu Ruyan to the hospital to visit Li Feng. He, right in front of me, asked Liu Ruyan to feed him porridge with her own hands, while chatting and laughing with Liu Ruyan. He never forgot to glare at me with a mocking look on his face. At that moment, I realized his true nature. But at that time, the relationship between Liu Ruyan and me was already very strained. I endured again, and in the end, I still ended up with this outcome. Though I wanted nothing more than to tear off his hypocritical face right away, for the sake of the child, I still dialed the number. The phone kept ringing non-stop, but no one answered. I rushed downstairs, got in the car, and sped towards the hospital, continuously dialing Liu Ruyan's number on the way. It wasn't until I was almost at the entrance of the operating room that the phone finally connected. My heart held a glimmer of hope. Thinking she might have changed her mind, I quickly pleaded, Ruyan, please, don't. But before I could finish, Li Feng's concerned voice came from the receiver. Sorry, Ruyan. For my sake, you have to endure the pain of a miscarriage. There was a loud thud in my mind, and I hadn't even had time to respond. The next second, Liu Ruyan's gentle voice made me feel if I was plunged into an ice cellar. It's not hard at all, compared to the pain you have endured. This little bit of suffering is nothing, Brother Li Feng. For you, I am willing to do anything. I suddenly let out a bitter laugh, and tears uncontrollably flowed down from the corners of my eyes. So, I was still too late, wasn't I? My wife of 7 years, to fulfill the last wish of her first love, was about to destroy our child with her own hands. If her first love hadn't fallen ill and was still healthy, does it mean that I could also be abandoned at any moment? Disappointment filled my heart, and I felt as if the world before me had lost all color. First loves are truly the hardest to forget. I put the phone to my ear, my tone filled with resignation. Liu Ruyan, let's get a divorce. After saying that, I hung up the phone immediately. Driving, I found myself dazedly returning home. On the way, I thought about so many things. I recalled the beautiful times I had with Liu Ruyan, remembering the days of our love and life together. But the more I thought about it, the more pain I felt. From the way Liu Ruyan looked at me before, full of affection, I was certain she had loved me once. But ever since Li Feng returned, her heart had gone back to him. If that's the case, why did she marry me in the first place? Silently, I began to pack my clothes, gathering all my belongings. I realized, after living in this house for 7 years, all the traces I left behind could fit into a single small suitcase. Just as I was about to leave with my suitcase, Liu Ruyan returned. Her face was flushed with color, not at all like someone who had just undergone surgery. The smile on her face vanished the moment she saw me. She frowned, staring at me. What are you doing? Running away from home? Shen Muyan, you're a grown man now. If you could be half as mature as Li Feng, I would be at ease. Mature? Before Li Feng returned, she always said I was mature, that I handled things thoroughly. But ever since Li Feng came back, she suddenly changed. Just because I refused to let her have a child with her first love, and wanted a divorce from her? Does that make me immature? Well, I'd rather be immature then. I didn't answer her question. I just threw out a "see you at the Civil Affairs office tomorrow" and continued walking toward the door. I thought she would gladly let go. But unexpectedly, she suddenly blocked my way with an unpleasant expression. Shen Muyan, how dare you? I just want to fulfill Brother Li Feng's last wish. Why can't you understand me? I didn't want to pay her any attention. But hearing such a shameless statement, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Understand you? How do you expect me to understand you? By sacrificing my child's life? By wearing a green hat? To fulfill Li Feng's last wish? Sorry, but I'm not that generous. And if you really do get pregnant with Li Feng's child in the future ... what do you expect me to do? How should my parents face the world? To my surprise, Liu Ruyan responded nonchalantly. Brother Li Feng is about to die. Why are you still holding a grudge against him? At that time, if you don't say it and I don't say it, no one will ever know. Sounds so perfect, doesn't it? But what about my dignity? If he truly dies, then won't I always live under the shadow of a dead man? When she thought about all this, she never cared about how I felt. I was already disheartened, too tired to argue with her anymore. As she stared at me, furious that I didn't understand her, I pushed her away and left this home that was once so warm, but now brings me unbearable pain. Since my parents were not in this city, I took a taxi to a friend's house to stay temporarily. Upon seeing me, my friend looked utterly surprised and asked why I had come to him. I was too ashamed to tell the truth, so I just said I had a fight with Liu Ruyan. At that moment, the hesitant expression on my friend's face caught my attention. Sitting on the sofa, after my persistent questioning, he finally confessed that his wife works at the hospital where Li Feng is being treated. 3 months ago, she had already seen Liu Ruyan and Li Feng in an intimate moment, but at the time they were far away, so she couldn't be sure it was them. Fearing it would cause conflict between me and Liu Ruyan, she didn't tell me. My friend tried to comfort me, saying, Maybe his wife had seen it wrong. But only I knew the truth. I thought that once it was confirmed, I would be sad, heartbroken, angry. But to my surprise, at this moment, I felt an extraordinary calm in my heart. I understood that it was because my heart for Liu Ruyan had already died. When she said she wanted to give up our child, and told Li Feng that he was the one she cared about most, the possibility of us ever being together again had already vanished. Gritting my teeth, I told my friend the truth and asked him to help me investigate a few things. At this moment, I no longer cared about saving face. I just wanted to know what exactly happened between the two of them. What had transpired? My friend quickly agreed with righteous indignation. A week passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, I kept myself busy with work. And Liu Ruyan didn't contact me either. It wasn't until my parents called to tell me they had arrived in the city that I remembered. Earlier, when I found out Liu Ruyan was pregnant, I had informed them of the news. They even invited Liu Ruyan's parents to join for a celebration, thinking of how the old couple had been longing for their grandchild, who was no longer in this world. I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. I didn't dare tell them the truth, fearing they couldn't handle the blow. As I was pondering how to explain this to them, Liu Ruyan, who I hadn't heard from in ages, suddenly called me. The moment she spoke, it was with a harsh reprimand. "Shen Muyan, why are you so talkative? Who gave you the right to tell them? Let me tell you. You must not mention this to them, or else I'll divorce you." I chuckled coldly and hung up the phone. Divorce? Using that threat again. Previously, when I was annoyed by her frequent visits to Li Feng, she had already threatened me with divorce, saying I was too narrow-minded, jealous of a patient. But now, thinking about it, none of this matters anymore. After all, I've long wanted to divorce her. Evening came, and when I arrived at the hotel, my parents were joyfully chatting with Liu Ruyan's family. Liu Ruyan was sitting right beside them. When she heard my parents asking about her and the child, there wasn't the slightest hint of guilt on her face. She even gently stroked her belly, her face full of happiness. Seeing this scene, I couldn't help but feel a wave of nausea. But because Liu Ruyan's parents had indeed treated me quite well before, out of respect for them, I didn't immediately expose Liu Ruyan. I just silently ate my meal until they jokingly mentioned at the table that I should come up with a name for the child. I could no longer hold it in, seeing the expectant looks on both sets of parents' faces. Ignoring Liu Ruyan's attempt to pull me back under the table, I bitterly spoke the truth. "Mom, Dad, father-in-law, mother-in-law, there's no need for this anymore. Liu Ruyan, to make room to have a child for her first love, has already personally aborted our child. I know this will surely hurt you, but I couldn't hold it in any longer. Mom, Dad, thank you for your unconditional care all these years. But now, I am going to divorce Liu Ruyan." The look of expectation on both sets of parents' faces froze. Such a shocking revelation made them turn their gaze toward Liu Ruyan in disbelief. Seeing that she couldn't hide it anymore, Liu Ruyan first gave me a hateful glare, then gritted her teeth and said, "Don't listen to his nonsense. I didn't have a miscarriage, and there's no such thing as a first love. If you don't believe me, look at this. This is the examination report I just did 2 days ago. After speaking, she pulled out an ultrasound report from her bag and handed it to me, and then to my parents. Next, she turned her accusations towards me. Shen Ruyan, on what grounds are you slandering me? I don't know where you heard these rumors, but wanting a divorce because of them? You've deeply disappointed me. Facing the questioning gazes of the elders, I gave Ruyan a cold smile and said, yes, you didn't have a miscarriage, because the child in your womb isn't mine. It's Lin Feng's, your first love. The room fell into a sudden silence. The shocking news struck both sets of parents like a bolt from the blue. Only Ruyan quickly lifted her head, her face filled with disbelief as she looked at me. My father-in-law urgently asked me, his tone filled with shock and doubt. Ruyan, you mustn't speak recklessly. You are husband and wife. You can't just believe rumors and slander Ruyan like this. The Liu family has always been strict. My in-laws are both university professors, and they have always taught Ruyan to keep herself virtuous. If what I'm saying is true, for these upright elders, it would be worse than a nightmare. Looking at my father-in-law, who had always been kind to me, I hesitated, suddenly feeling reluctant to continue. But this is the truth. After a week of investigation, my friend had placed all the evidence in front of me. Included in that evidence were records of Ruyan and Lin Feng leaving the hospital together, a video of them going to a hotel together. There's also evidence of them being unable to hold back even in the hospital. What chills me to the bone even more is that when Ruyan and I began trying for a baby, which was about 5 years ago, she had already started purchasing long-term contraceptives from the pharmacy. This means that it wasn't due to our bodies that we couldn't conceive, but because Ruyan had never intended to give birth to my child. Now that Li Feng has returned, 1110, the person she cares about the most, has appeared. Only then did she begin to have the thought of having a child. And this child could even make me take the blame. Thinking about all this, I feel a deep chill at Ruyan's cunning nature. To think that, if it wasn't for the fear that I might notice something was wrong after the child's birth, Ruyan would not have bothered to make any excuse saying she wanted to have a child for Li Feng at all. Saying she wanted to have a child for Li Feng. Luckily, I held my ground, leaving them with no options. So they had to resort to force. This made me completely awaken, although I said nothing. The troubled look in my eyes still made my in-laws understand everything. My father-in-law looked at Ruyan, her head bowed, unable to resist raising his hand to slap her. But in the end, she was their beloved daughter. My mother-in-law quickly stopped him, her voice breaking with tears as she questioned Ruyan. Ruyan, speak up. Tell us. Tell Ruyan that all of this is false. Tears began to well up in my father-in-law's cloudy eyes. Why even ask this unfilial daughter, he questioned. If it were false, she would have already spoken to defend herself. She has brought disgrace upon the family. Disgrace upon the family. He finished speaking. My father-in-law let out a deep, sorrowful sigh and bowed apologetically to my parents. I'm so sorry to you both, he said, my dear in-laws, for raising such a disobedient daughter. My parents and I quickly stepped forward to support him. My father, without saying much, began to offer comfort. My dear in-law, none of us wanted to see something like this happen. It's not your fault. This is a matter for the children. Let them resolve it themselves. Come, let's go find a place to have a drink or two. At that moment, Tears flowed freely from my father-in-law's aged eyes. He waved his hand at my father, saying he had no face left for this. Then, without paying any attention to Ruyan, who remained silent with her head down, he took my weeping mother-in-law by the hand and walked out. My parents exchanged a glance and let out a deep sigh. I knew this whole ordeal had also deeply affected them. I just wanted to take them away for now. But as we were almost out of the room, Ruyan, who had been silent until then, suddenly spoke up. She screamed hysterically, "Shen Muyan! Is this the outcome you wanted to see? You are so cruel. You've not only ruined me, but also destroyed my family. Am I the cruel one? You're the one who did the disgraceful things, and now you turn around and call me cruel?" I led my furious parents straight out of the room. As we left the room, I threw out one final sentence. You reap what you sow, and you can't survive if you've done wrong. I submitted all the evidence to the court and filed for divorce. Regarding my marriage with Ruyan, I no longer wanted to maintain it for even a moment. While waiting for the court's decision, my life returned to its previous uneventful state. Not wanting to continuously impose on my friend, I rented a house outside. Regarding that house that brought me pain and disgust, I never wanted to return there again. At the same time, I wanted to completely erase Ruyan from my memory and life. That day, while I was working in the office, I suddenly heard a knock on the door. The person then pushed the door open and entered. "Director Shen, still busy? Would you grace this young lady with your presence for dinner tonight?" Smelling the familiar scent of gardenias, I knew who it was without looking up. I jokingly said, "How could I refuse an invitation from President Su? Otherwise, you might withdraw your investment, and I'd have nowhere to cry. By the way, what's the occasion today? That made you think of inviting me out?" The person who came in was Su Xue, a partner in my company, and also a classmate from my university days. We've known each other for 10 years. Her family's assets could rank on the Forbes list. And it was her help that allowed our company to successfully go public. As for why she would help me, I have some guesses. But it always seems impossible with her background. What kind of man couldn't she find? Why would she take an interest in me, a man soon to be divorced, and just an ordinary citizen? So, I can only attribute it to the fact that I am her good friend. Su Xue sat down across from me, resting her chin in her hands, and stared straight at me, continuing to joke around. "Today is my birthday. Otherwise, how could I dare trouble you to come?" That's when it dawned on me. And at the same time, I felt a bit guilty. In the past, due to Ruyan's jealousy, I had always intentionally kept my distance from Su Xue, not daring to have any contact beyond work. At that time, I thought Ruyan cared for me, and that's why she was strict. I was even happy about it for a long time, but now I realize she just wanted to keep me firmly in her grasp, to satisfy her desire for control. Thinking of all the help Su Xue had given me over time, yet I had never celebrated her birthday, or even given her a gift. Reflecting on this, I wanted to sincerely apologize to Su Xue. But as soon as I looked up, I met her eyes soft like water, and felt a slight flutter in my heart. I stared for a long while, noticing Su Xue's amused gaze. I finally came back to my senses, quickly lowering my head. Su Xue let out a charming laugh, told me the address, and then left. That evening, I brought a gift and went to the appointment, only to realize it was just the two of us. But since I was already there, I could only suppress my nervousness and sit down. As the soothing music began to play, our conversation became more relaxed. Laughter filled the table. But suddenly, a familiar and grating voice sounded from behind me. Shenmuyan, I never expected you to be like this. It's this little vixen who encouraged you to divorce me. I frowned and looked at the person who came. And sure enough, it was Liu Ruyan. Beside her was her best friend, who kept spewing out foul language, all aimed at mocking Su Xue and me. I initially didn't want to argue with them, but today was Su Xue's birthday, so I directly shouted at them. Enough! Do you have any business here? If not, stay away from us. My cold words seemed to provoke Liu Ruyan. She wanted to lose her temper, but then, as if remembering something, she began to stroke her belly, looking pitiful. Shenmuyan, how could you shout at me? I'm still carrying your baby. It must be this vixen who has bewitched you, making you abandon me and our child. Isn't that so? Liu Ruyan's identity as a pregnant woman, combined with her pitiful expression, immediately caused everyone in the restaurant to point fingers at Su Xue and me. I couldn't help but laugh out of anger at what Liu Ruyan said. How had I never realized before that she was such a shameless person? Wasn't she afraid I would expose her? Just as I was about to speak the truth, Su Xue, beside me, gave me a look. Without saying a word, she grabbed my hand and began pulling me toward the door. Liu Ruyan and her best friend, relentless, followed closely behind us, continuing to hurl obscene words. I tried to lead Su Xue to the car, but she let go of my hand. Walking onto the road, surrounded by cars speeding past, Su Xue showed no fear at all. Instead, she stared straight at me, her eyes full of deep emotion. Shenmuyan, they're not wrong. I am indeed a vixen, and moreover ... this vixen, have loved you for 10 years. Now, I'm giving you a choice. Either marry me, or I'll die. Su Xue had been drinking, and was already somewhat drunk, worried she might have an accident on the road. Without thinking, I immediately interrupted her and shouted, I agree. After calming her down, I stopped a passing car, ran over to her, and held her tightly in my arms. At that moment, I finally understood her feelings. I also realized why, in the restaurant, she didn't let me argue. Because even if I presented evidence, Liu Ruyan, as a pregnant woman, would still stand on the moral high ground, even if the law recognized my innocence. In the eyes of gossipers, I would still be seen as a man who abandoned his wife and child. What Su Xue did was to take all the blame on herself. As a man, what reason would I have not to accept her confession? I felt genuinely happy to have such a thoughtful, loving woman in my life. Liu Ruyan looked at us embracing, in disbelief, and suddenly panicked. Why you? Can't you to not do this? Shen Muyan. I am your wife. Are you really going to abandon us for her? I lifted my head from Su Xue's shoulder, looking troubled. But I can't just watch her die for me, can I? All I did was confess to Su Xue. You were so generous, willing to have a child for someone else. Surely you can understand me, right? Ruyan was rendered speechless by my words. She turned around and left with her best friend. Su Xue and I exchanged a smile. With Su Xue's help, more evidence against Ruyan was submitted to the court. The divorce proceedings ended quickly. Ruyan left the marriage with nothing. It was only then, from her final expression, that I understood why she had come to the restaurant to find me. She must have feared that after Li Feng's death, she would have no one to rely on and no money to spend. So she tried to use moral blackmail against me. But unfortunately for her, Su Xue saw through it and took the opportunity to confess to me. But at this moment, I no longer wanted to deal with those troublesome matters. Since I had agreed to Su Xue's confession, I decided to devote my whole heart to her. I would show her 100 times the care one once showed Ruyan. During this time, our feelings for each other quickly deepened. I finally experienced Su Xue's thoughtfulness. She would remember what I liked to eat and what I was allergic to. She would prepare steaming hot meals for me after a long day at work and take meticulous care of me when I was sick, reminding me to take my medicine on time and making nutritious soups for me. These were things I had never experienced with Ruyan, although she treated me well back then. She never remembered these details, not even cooking a meal. At first, I thought she had just forgotten or was too busy. But now I understand. The one she loved was never me. Just when I thought that Ruyan and I were done for good in this lifetime, when I thought we would never cross paths again, she showed up at my new home, belly protruding. In the newly purchased house, I stared in shock at Ruyan, disheveled and looking like a madwoman. What's wrong with you? Ruyan suddenly began to cry and kneeled down before me, pleading, "Husband, I was wrong. I will go and abort the baby right now. Can we start over, please? Husband." The term I once most wanted to hear now only made me feel disgusted. Su Xue immediately waved her hand with a cold smile. "No! The one standing here is my husband. How can you call him that? Why the sudden change of heart? Weren't you determined to protect your first love's child, even at the cost of your life?" Did he die? I remained silent, just quietly watching Ruyan, but she looked panicked, continuously picking at her fingers. After 7 years of marriage, I knew this was a sign of her anxiety. Su Xue sneered and opened her phone. Is it because of this? The screen clearly showed a scene of Li Feng, wearing a hospital gown, being taken away by the police. His face was filled with panic. But there was no trace of a patient's weakness. Ruyan immediately pushed the phone away. "Take it away!" She collapsed onto the floor, tears streaming down her face, as if she couldn't bear the blow. But I wasn't surprised at all, because I was the one who got Li Feng arrested. That day, Su Xue brought me the investigation materials on Li Feng, and that was when I discovered Li Feng was never actually sick. He had simply run up gambling debts abroad and returned home to escape. He pretended to be sick to hook up with Ruyan, just because he saw that I had money and wanted to take advantage of me. Before this, he had already deceived several wealthy women. With the evidence I provided, Li Feng was quickly apprehended. Ruyan must have realized that her only support was gone as well, so she turned to me. I calmly said, Ruyan, if he hadn't pretended to be sick and deceived you, you wouldn't be here admitting your mistake to me, would you? Ruyan shook her head repeatedly, her voice filled with pleading. No! I have always loved you. If you don't believe me, I'll go to the hospital and have an abortion right now. Will that be okay? I had never seen Ruyan so humbled. So low! I shook my head. There's no need, Ruyan. There is no possibility between us anymore. At that moment, Ruyan's parents came over. Looking at me with a complex expression, I felt a bit unsure of what to do. I could be indifferent to Ruyan, but I still respected these two kind elders. They told me Ruyan's mental state had become unstable since the day Li Feng was arrested. She was trapped in her own dreams, unable to come out. This time, they hadn't kept a close enough watch on her, but they promised she wouldn't come to bother me again. I sighed and told them I would visit them often. Afterward, the old couple patted my shoulder and took Ruyan, who kept muttering to herself, away. After that, I never saw Ruyan again. I heard she was sent abroad by her parents after Su Xue and I got our marriage certificate. We lived happily together ever since, and a pair of lovely children.